know that sound. Every phone in the grocery store, every phone at the gas station, every phone on the highway lighting up at the same second with the same screech. Amber Alert. A child, a description, a vehicle, a direction of travel. And within minutes, not hours, minutes, that critical information is on highway signs and in your palm. It's pushed to every patrol car's terminal in the region. It's in a national database that every law enforcement agency in the country can query. There is a nonprofit with a 24-hour hotline whose entire job is this exact moment. There are protocols with names. Code Adam. A store can lock its own doors. If a 6-year-old vanished from a department store this afternoon, an entire machine would wake up before their mother finished describing what shirt they were wearing. Now delete all of it. The alert system, the database, the hotline, the highway signs, the protocol, the nonprofit. Delete the assumption, the basic load-bearing assumption that when a child disappears, officials treat it like an emergency. What you're left with is July 27, 1981. Last week, we watched Adam Walsh walk into a Sears in Hollywood, Florida, and not come out. This week, we stay inside the window that mattered most, the first 24 hours, and we count what was there to catch him. I'm Emilio. Welcome back to Your Next. This is episode 2, the first 24 hours. Quick reset if you're just joining us, and seriously, go back and listen to episode 1 first. This season is built to be heard in order. Monday, July 27th, 1981, approximately 12:30 p.m., Revé Walsh and her 6-year-old son Adam are at the Sears at the Hollywood Mall in Hollywood, Florida. Adam is wearing a red and white striped Izod shirt, green Adidas shorts, yellow sandals, and a beige captain's cap. He's standing at an Atari 2600 kiosk in the toy department watching other kids play the game, where either a scuffle or an argument broke out among the older boys regarding whose turn it was to play. Now, here's the detail that matters the most. The Atari kiosk wasn't tucked deep into the store's interior. It was situated just steps away from an exterior exit door leading straight into the parking lot. Revé is a few aisles away in the lamp department. A 17-year-old security guard, Catherine Schaefer, responds to a disturbance at the video game display, breaks up a dispute between the older boys, and tells the kids to leave. And somewhere in that shuffle, Adam, who's shy, well-mannered, the kind of kid who does what a grown-up in a uniform tells him to do, ends up outside a door his mother doesn't know he went through. That's where episode 1 left him. Now, I want to run that same afternoon back, but this time with a stopwatch, because this episode isn't really about what happened, it's about when. Revé finishes her business in the lamp department and returns to the kiosk area around 12:45 p.m., though because her watch is broken, timing in these first minutes relies on estimates. Adam isn't there. Here's the thing about the next stretch of time. It doesn't feel like a crisis yet because nothing around her will let it. The store is calm, music is playing, shoppers are shopping. Revé is the only person in that building whose world is ending and every system around her is operating at 1981 speed. She and a store manager begin checking aisle after aisle, department after department. Store employees are alerted, and she has Adam paged over the store intercom and then paged again and again. Picture that from the inside. A store PA repeating a 6-year-old boy's name into a building full of people who just keep shopping while his mother scans every face, hoping against hope. According to Revé's formal statement in the police reports, that manual search inside Sears went on for about 45 minutes. 45 minutes of staring down the same aisles. 45 minutes of doing the only search that existed because there was no other search. No employee protocol kicked in, nobody locked a door, nobody swept the exterior perimeter or checked outbound cars in the parking lot. In 1981, a department store had a plan for shoplifters and a plan for fires and nothing at all for a missing child. The concept of store-wide lockdown, the thing we now literally call Code Adam, did not exist. At 1:55 p.m., after exhaustive pages and searching, the call was finally placed to the Hollywood Police Department. Now do the math with me, because this is the first entry in today's ledger. Adam is directed out of the exit door around 12:30 p.m. Revé notices he is missing around 12:45 p.m. The first call to police is at 1:55 p.m. That's nearly an hour and a half where the only response was a name over a store loudspeaker. In 1981, when you called the police about a missing child, you were asking for help from an institution that had no protocol for missing children. Not because of malice, but because the idea that this required an immediate emergency response framework hadn't taken root in public policy yet. When the call came into dispatch, it wasn't treated with Code 3 urgency. Officers arrived to take a routine report for a missing or wandered child. There was no national missing persons database, every police department operated independently, and there was no coordination between jurisdictions. If your child was taken across state line, the FBI couldn't intervene unless there was a ransom demand because kidnapping for ransom was a federal crime. Kidnapping for any other reason was a local matter. There was no Amber Alert, no 1-800 The Lost, no highway signs, no photo wire broadcasts. What existed instead was this: take a report, check the immediate area, and wait for the child to turn up. While officers searched inside the mall corridors, official case files showed no immediate perimeter control established at the parking lot exits. No logging of license plates, no stopping of outbound traffic, no immediate regional broadcasts to neighboring agencies. Instead, tips began trickling in organically, and because there was no system to manage them, early leads were documented and simply filed away. Without a central investigative protocol, every lead became noise. Vehicle descriptions multiplied: blue vans, dark sedans, unverified sightings. Without verification frameworks, potential clues sat stagnant in paper folders. Meanwhile, John Walsh, who had been at work when Revé called him, realized very quickly that the standard institutional response was not going to be enough. What happened next is where the Walshes stopped being passive victims of a system and started building their own. John arrived at the Hollywood Police Department later that afternoon after Revé called him at work. Pushing past initial precinct friction, he and Revé essentially set up an operational command post directly inside the station building. They brought in phones, organized volunteers, and began tracking incoming leads on paper. John's family, friends, and colleagues from the hotel management industry arrived to help. They mapped out local search grids, called area hospitals, checked bus stations, and contacted regional jails, manually doing the footwork that no automated system existed to execute. In those first hours, it was a localized, desperate effort. But as the clock kept ticking and the institutional machinery stalled, John's business network stepped in to scale the operation up. They realized that paper flyers handed out on local street corners couldn't cover enough ground. Over the days that followed, John's business partners, led by hotel developer Ralph Sanchez and their corporate contacts, funded a massive printing effort to produce roughly 250,000 high-quality missing persons flyers featuring Adam's photograph. Because there was no national wire system for missing children, they had to build their own distribution network. John's partners leveraged executive connections within the aviation industry, specifically with Eastern Airlines. Eastern agreed to transport boxes of Adam's flyers on commercial flights leaving South Florida, pushing its image out to ticket counters, transit hubs, and terminals across the entire southeastern United States. Private corporate aircraft were mobilized to fly search coordinators, family members, and private investigators to chase down regional leads across Florida and into neighboring states. To incentivize the public and shake loose actionable tips, John's network quickly pooled the funds to establish a massive $100,000 reward. By the end of that first day, the Walshes had laid the groundwork for an unprecedented multi-state campaign. Yet, as impressive as this mobilization became, it underscored the central tragedy of the 24-hour window. It was a family-led, ad hoc effort born of sheer desperation. On night one, volunteers were searching blindly without central coordination. But on July 27th, while the Walshes were scrambling to build an infrastructure from scratch, the clock was running out. This private sector intervention, born in a police station command post, would eventually serve as the structural blueprint for modern alert systems, including the ADAM program, which stands for Automated Delivery of Alerts on Missing Children, and the distribution systems used by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Evening came, the sun went down, the mall closed. The store where Adam had last been seen went dark. Somewhere in that transition from afternoon to night, the official posture began to shift. The initial assumption that a 6-year-old had simply wandered off or would turn up at a friend's house, or even walk home, was becoming mathematically improbable. By nightfall, investigators were confronting the reality of abduction. Local news outlets began broadcasting the alert: 6-year-old Adam Walsh missing from the Hollywood Mall. John and Revé remained awake through the entire night at the station, managing phones and volunteers. By morning, Adam had been missing for over 12 hours. Get out your notes or pinboard and let's put the first 24 hours back together with the clock running because the timeline is the indictment. And remember, these are rough estimates. Revé's watch was broken and nobody's chronology was precise in those first panicked minutes. Approximately 12:30 p.m., Adam Walsh is directed away from the Atari display near the Sears exit doors by security guard Catherine Schaefer. His mother is inside the store in the lamp department, unaware. Around 12:45 to 1:55 p.m., Revé realizes Adam is not at the kiosk. She and the store manager search the aisles and have Adam paged multiple times. There was no coordinated response from store personnel, no lockdown, and no systematic search of the parking lot. 1:55 p.m., Revé calls the Hollywood Police Department. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., Hollywood police respond to take the initial report. Search scope is limited. The case is categorized as a routine missing or wandered child. No immediate perimeter roadblocks are set up, no local license plates are logged, and no regional alert is issued to neighboring agencies. 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., John Walsh arrives at the police station. The Walshes and close friends set up a localized search hub inside the building, manually placing calls to hospitals, bus stations, and local news desks while volunteers search nearby neighborhoods. 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., the search continues throughout the night. No sleep for the Walsh family. Police begin transitioning the case posture toward potential abduction as local media coverage begins to pick up. 24 hours. Adam Walsh has been missing for a full day. He is no longer plausibly lost or a runaway. The groundwork being laid by John's network for a massive mobilization, one that over the coming days will produce 250,000 flyers, national airline distribution through Eastern Airlines, and a $100,000 reward. But right now, at hour 24, no national missing child infrastructure exists. The search relies entirely on local volunteers and the desperation of his parents. Looking back, in those 24 hours, the critical window closed. The most plausible escape routes went unmonitored. Witness memories were already beginning to degrade. The person who took Adam, if someone took him, was already far past the point of being stopped by a perimeter that should have been established at 2 p.m. In those 24 hours, Adam Walsh became not just a missing child, but a cold case. The system that would have caught this, the system that would have treated those 24 hours like the emergency they were, didn't exist. It would take this case to build it. It would take John and Revé, transformed by grief into advocates, to demand it. It would take Congress and the president and a national conversation about why we don't protect children the way we protect anything else we care about. What happened in those 24 hours wasn't inevitable. It was the absence of a system that hadn't been built yet. Right now, we're standing at the end of July 27th, 1981, and we're looking back at 24 hours when nothing existed except a voice on a store intercom, a father's desperate phone calls, and the terrifying silence of institutions that didn't know what to do. That silence was the real emergency. Alright, nexties. Before we close, I want to introduce the Hound Division and the Feline Bureau. Especially in the true crime world, I feel like we're all either a cat or a dog person, and with that, of course, comes personalities and very specific ways we look at the details. First up, the Hound Division. You're our evidence hunters. You're tracking hard facts, primary documents, and precise timelines. You're the ones asking, what do we know for sure? What can we actually prove? Your nose is high in the air following the paper trail. For your very first assignment, pull the 24-hour timeline we laid out today and cross-reference it against the actual police reports when you access the episode links. Look closely at the gaps, the things that should have happened in those first few hours but didn't. Then we have the Feline Bureau. You're our big picture theorists. You're asking, what does this mean? What was the broader culture or system that allowed this to happen? And your hypothetical tale is tapping. For your assignment, sit with the systemic vacuum of 1981. Imagine standing in Revé's shoes coming back to that empty aisle, or John getting that phone call at work. What basic assumptions, protocols, or societal safety nets were completely missing from the culture back then? For both divisions, you're building the groundwork for episode 3, where we get into the investigative hurdles and institutional failures that followed. If you want to get ahead on the reading, I highly recommend picking up John Walsh's book, Tears of Rage. I've read it twice and it's truly gripping. Next week, we're stepping into the investigation itself, and this is where things get messy. This is where evidence disappears, accounts change, and leads go cold. Next week is episode 3, The Broken Investigation. Alright, Nexties, take care of each other this week. Eyes open, back to the wall. You're next. You're Next is created, written, and produced by me, Emilio, and is a Red Thread media production. Research for the season draws on primary source documents from the Hollywood Police Department case file, published accounts from John and Revé Walsh, and 40 years of investigative journalism. Find the full source guide, episode documents, and community links at yournextpod.com or right in the episode description.